Good morning, everybody. It's Graham Coath here with a LinkedIn Live. Today I'm going to be talking to Freddie. Freddie, thanks for joining me this morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Yeah, very well. Very well for Monday.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's Monday. We're up. We're alive. And I've actually even got a shirt on, which is,
which is more than I have.
Which is showing willing. Now,
Yes.
I wanted to pick your brains live on air about culture change within business, because I know you're the man for this. It's something that's fascinated me, and I've really got my teeth into over the last few years. And it started for me, it started with doing workplace assessments within businesses, because I was seeing a change happening in terms of the way that businesses were thinking about health and well-being of their staff. It meant that people were taking that little bit more interest in trying to retain staff and help their teams grow. But I also saw within what was happening that the support and the way that was being rolled out was quite fractured or siloed, and that actually sometimes it was about trying to stick a plaster on a gaping hole rather than necessarily deal with the root of the problem. So I want to start by talking about how much you've seen things change in terms of company culture in the last few years. Can you give some example? What got you into this area of culture change?
Well, that's a good question. And in fact, there was a pivotal moment, actually. So I spent a lot of my career in sales and marketing. And then I joined the world of performance improvement. And I was absolutely fascinated by what made somebody really excited about, going for an incentives, what motivated people to get out of bed in the morning. Because I have to say, incentive programs really never motivated me. I think the desire to do a good job and, and the curiosity of trying to solve problems for other people, even if it was just selling faxes or whatever it was, a product or a service, actually took me to a very senior role within a very large American corporation. And our comms team won a contract for Barclays Retail to engage them around a new strategic narrative when Robbie Coltrane went on top of skyscrapers and said, "Big is great. Big is everything. We're big. We can look after you." And we created a program which ran for 18 months. And we designed two branded experience to deliver the new customer engagement program. And that was meant to engage the hearts and minds of the people, give them the ability to engage with their customers coming through the door in a different way. And they spent a significant amount of money. And the more I spent time engaging with the program was great. But when I really thought about the intent of the program, when I really thought about what is this really going to achieve and how are they going to sustain it, I started to get my doubts about whether this was going to be sustainable. Because fundamentally what they were doing is they were providing, for a better purpose, a PR engagement program for the group. So they were doing transactional change. They weren't doing transformational change. And that was really my first big learning, is that most organizations in those days wanted just transactional change. They weren't really interested in transformational change. And then I got involved in a program for Mercedes-Benz Retail. And this is when I started to first experience what really transformational change looked like. So Mercedes wanted to own their own network. They went and spent millions and millions of pounds acquiring smaller businesses to create this retail business. And one of the things that we did as part of the program is to find a dealership which had the potential, and worked on creating a blueprint which could be made then available for the rest of the business. And what was interesting then is we literally broke down every single element of the customer experience. We looked at not just what people were doing, but also how they were doing it. What kind of behaviors were going to be needed to create an experience that people wanted. We, in the background, where actually Mercedes were growing their product. So they went from being 2 products, and suddenly they were introducing the C class, the A class, and also in an environment where they were changing, their showrooms. They were starting to work in market areas. So there was a lot of discontent from customers being customers of the brand for many, many years. So they were almost transforming the business, or transforming the plane, what it's while flying in the air, so it was extraordinary. But the rigor that went behind putting a program like this, when you looked at every single processes, and actually what I started to really realize is you cannot do this without the people. And here's my first light bulb, really, is that you cannot do culture change quick, and you cannot do culture change without co-creating it with the people. It is impossible. Well, when I say it's impossible, what you will do is transactional change. Yes. But you won't sustain it for the long term. Yeah. So I started to see different types of businesses and different types of leaders, because even when leaders said, we want change, the problem they have often is they have conflicting priorities. So they want to change the organization, but actually the pay and reward, doesn't then align to the new organization. So therefore, they're changing the business, but the behaviors of what they've been asked to do or how they've been remunerated is still through the old ways. And this is one of the hardest things to do when you say to somebody, we're just going to have to look at how people are remunerated and what they are being rewarded for, and that might change. Hence why it's so important for the people to be involved.
Yeah. And do you think, so a lot of businesses now are trying to move away from the more traditional hierarchical structure, which is what we've seen for years and years and years. And they know within that they need to also move away from so much micromanagement. But do you think they're looking sometimes at the wrong ways of moving? Because maybe, for example, they just go straight to a system, or they look for a system, implement a system, and that system's going to change the culture, but it doesn't actually change the culture, does it? It just lies a new system on top of an existing culture, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. The problem is to start by understanding why organizations want to change. So what's driving the change? Is it because somebody wants to improve the performance of the organization? Because often that's at the core. Is it because actually they want to streamline the organization? They want to become more cost effective. So we have to go to the core of why they want to change the business. And by understanding that, we can start to put in place the process of change. Okay. But often what I've seen now, and what we're encouraging people to, and leaders to do, and organizations to do, is to say, is your purpose fit for purpose? Are you now, is your desire, is your vision, your mission, your purpose, what you exist to do, is it still relevant? And actually it's been really interesting, Graham, is that over the last few months since the pandemic, not only people have repurposed themselves, leaders have repurposed themselves. They've actually looked at themselves and said, I've led in a particular way. I had this, I had this persona which enabled me to navigate the world around me, but actually that doesn't work anymore. I've had people contacting me during the pandemic saying, Freddie, can I have some coaching? Because I just don't know who I am anymore. I just don't understand how to operate and how to be. So fundamentally, purpose is so critical to everything. It's just Simon Sinek stuff is, the why. What do you do? What you do? What do you exist to do? We've even had to do that. We've even had to sit down as a team and say to ourselves, does what we do is it still relevant? Do we still have a business for the future?
Yeah.
Now, the moment you start to do that, you start to then really think about every element of your organization, because you look at your customers, you have to understand what it is that you're servicing, selling, how you are doing it, the behaviors that are leading you to that. Because often in the past, people have used the past and the historical data to inform the future. But of course, we now know that we cannot solve the new problems with old-fashioned thinking. Now, we've written this book about 2.5 years ago called Frontier Leadership. And actually, we were slightly ahead of the time because that was just pre-pandemic. I mean, who could have known? And in there, we said, actually, there are 3 core elements to be a frontier leader, And frontier leaders understand their context. They don't just understand the business and how the organization works and maybe, how the competition works. They go wider than that. They understand their sector, but other sectors. How, for example, augmented reality may affect their business, their way to do business in the future. How, organization abroad may be impacting on what's going on. How partnerships going to be important. They're almost, widen their vision. Okay. The second things they do really well is challenge their beliefs. Now, challenging your beliefs is so hard to do, of course, because, it's about having a growth mindset. It's about allowing experimentation in businesses, which often can be expensive. It's allowing trust to grow in area where maybe we're not used to it. So if you think about the pandemic, for example, overnight leaders had to start trusting their team to do the work away from, vision, from what they could see. That has been a massive shift for them.
Yes, and many didn't. Many didn't,
and many didn't. And many didn't, because it's so hard. But also, that was so reminiscent of really the culture they had in their organization. It just proved that actually some of the way of doing business was quite toxic, and they had to change it. It is not sustainable. I mean, trust is singularly one of the most it's the most important premium. If you want to make quicker decisions, if you want to fly, if you want to innovate, trust is so important. That's for another subject. So we talked about context, we talked about beliefs, and of course, once we've identified those two, is what does that mean for me? What does that mean for me as a leader in the way that I need to behave? Because we know command and control doesn't work anymore. But actually, people have been talking about inclusive leadership, different models of leadership. And I think, it's important for leaders to realize that if you go with a purpose, the purpose will help actually understand everything within the organization. And that takes time.
Yeah, because effectively what you're saying is a lot of people don't get the trust situation because ultimately their people are not coming to work, or they know that their people are not coming to work with a belief that they are making a difference. Yeah. Because ultimately you get trust when you develop a culture where the people that you employ are coming to work because they understand the global objective. Yeah. Once everybody comes to work with the passion about we are changing the world for the better through coming to work each day by doing this communally as a team, then you've got trust, because the trust is two-way flowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not as simple as that, because of course you've got to demonstrate trust. Okay, so we have a particular model of trust that we work with, and leaders have to demonstrate that they're serious about building trust, and that takes time. And also, different people give trust in very different ways. Some give trust straight away, where some of them wants to see sustained behavior over a period of time before they start to give trust. But the problem with trust, of course, it takes a long time to earn, and it can take seconds to break. But trust is so important, and when it happens, it's extraordinary what can happen to organization. I mean, literally extraordinary what can happen with organization, and how quickly culture then culture change can happen. But I still go back to the fact that so purpose is important, and also reviewing the values. Often people say, "Oh, our values are not for changing," and I go, "Well, this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Why? You decide whether values should change or not." I mean, we did a very big change program for Bupa and Kerry in the UK, and Kerry Foods in particular in the UK. And the change program we led through Kerry Foods was led through the finance functions. And actually, I work as an extraordinary leader who allowed everything to be up for debate. And that was the only way. And I remember my first conversation with him, he'd received his employee survey, and he said, "I don't get it, Freddie. The feedback is that we don't listen. We don't listen to people, and yet we have conferences, we do newsletters, we do this. I don't get it." And I said, "Yes. Well, it doesn't mean that because you do something that it actually, that people are either ready to listen, or they hear what you're saying."
Yes.
Because if they created their own narrative in their brain about how the business works today, and if there is no trust, then no matter what you do at this stage, they're going to go, "Oh yeah, doesn't mean anything, so I'm not going to take any notice of it," no matter how hard you try, if you haven't done some of the basic work. So yes, it's actually, in our business we say what we do isn't complicated, it's just hard. And I do believe there's a lot of truth in that. Of course, the pandemic has made things complicated and hard at times, because you really have to go back and emotionally reconnect with your purpose, and that can be difficult. It can be hard for organizations to do. But when also people and leaders realize that they're not alone, because leadership can be a lonely place, but actually if leaders could really truly harness the power of their organization and their people, be a little bit more patient by taking the time, especially at the start, to really listen and co-create the future together, then that is transformational, and that sticks around. But the other thing that organizations should do is measure what matters. So change the KPIs. Don't be afraid of not changing the KPIs. In one of the organizations we work with today, we measure everything every single day. Every single day, we know how the business is doing. We know what people are thinking, how they are feeling, how they're building trust with their peers, with their leaders, with each other, how emotionally connected they are to the purpose, etc., etc. We live in a world we can be highly connected, and actually that is real gold dust stuff.
It is. I mean, how much, when you've been talking to leaders, how much has the fact that the pandemic has opened the doors of the office, if you like, and pushed the people out, how much that has affected leaders when you've been speaking to them? Because traditionally, and I remember growing up in the 70s and seeing the books, and there's so much about office culture.
Yes.
And now we haven't got, since the pandemic, we haven't got office culture necessarily. What we've got is we've got culture, but it's out there, and it's no longer contained necessarily within the bricks and mortar. You can't create it. It was almost a belief in the 70s that you could kind of create culture by having the office.
Well, I'm going to challenge that slightly, because if you do
Okay.
it, if you do this properly, okay. So
Yeah.
just take the Marines, just take the All Blacks, just take some of those, some of those organizations or teams who, no matter where they are, they conduct themselves. They know who they are. They know who they are inside.
Yeah.
Now, of course, businesses are different than sports teams. Sometimes, it's great to bring, learning from high performing teams, in sports into the workplace. But ultimately, it's not quite the same. However, if I am engaged and if I give more of myself to an organization, because not only do I believe and I'm bought into the purpose, so I'm emotionally connected with what the business exists to do. If I can see my peers, my leaders, how the organization operate, to have integrity, if I feel that my voice is heard and I can contribute to, the organization growth, yeah.
Mm.
And if there is integrity between what we say we do and what I experience every day, when I'm in the pub, when I'm in with friends, when I'm out there, I am the business. I will represent the business. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if I'm at home. It doesn't matter where I am. In fact,
Yep.
I am the brand.
Yep.
I will be proud to work for the brand.
Yep.
I will know that when I am in front of my laptop at home, or if I am going to, meet my colleagues at Costa, because that's what we do today, or because we don't have big offices anymore, we have satellite offices. When I walk through the door, I'll understand my values. I will be respectful of others. I will leave and be proud to be working for the brand. Okay.
Yeah.
And this stuff, can happen. Undoubtedly, you look around. I mean, one of the team, as I said, we've been working with. In fact, we won an award with them. So Suzuki, about 18 months ago, we started on the journey of high performance with the bikes, boats, and quad division. And today, you look at the scores and you look how people talk about it. These are the guys who used to think of themselves as second-class citizens in the business. Today, they worry about themselves. Today, they hold their head high. They've just had their boat conference, and they talked about their values. In fact, one of their dealers tweeted something about their values, and they said, "This is brilliant. This is just so Suzuki." And I'm so proud of that team, because wherever they go now, they're not a second-class citizen. They may have the smaller budgets, but actually everything they do, they're proud. Despite obviously all the challenges we know today, where lack of products and lack of chips to go into stuff, it's not easy. It's not easy out there. But the great culture carries them through, and they work to solve solutions together. Okay. Now, hey, Graham, I wasn't born yesterday. Well, actually, I was born yesterday. But what I'm saying is, it is possible to do this, but it takes time, and that's the thing.
Yeah. And I think I'd just like to add that this isn't something that's generational either. This isn't something that is only for a particular generation and only they will get it. And some people, I hear some things on LinkedIn where people go, "Oh yeah, but the young people these days, they don't get this." I'll just give you a story. Yeah. My son started working at the local pet shop, and recently you hear him, he's out with his friends, or he'd be sat with us and he'd go, "You should buy that from the local pet shop. You should support your local pet shop." It's getting there. It's ingrained in it. He loves that job so much, and he loves what they stand for.
Yeah.
That he's proud.
Yeah.
To tell people about it.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me. My son has my youngest son, who's not 26, worked for John Lewis warehouse. Okay, and I remember the very moment he came through the door. He'd been working there for a little while, and he goes, "I have to be ever so careful in a warehouse, Dad." I said, "Oh, of course. But I mean, health and safety." He said, No, just that. Because if I break anything, it affects all my colleagues, and and it affects our profit, and it affects our customers. And I went, and that is why John Lewis has such a great reputation.
Yeah.
because they have a different way of doing it. So I am 100% with you. In fact, it is not generational at all, not at all. But we have to accept that the new generation also work in, so they will engage with colleagues in a different way, in a slightly different way. But they will also be much more receptive to technology and how technology can enable them to, build a culture which will be most appropriate for them. Okay, but it doesn't mean you can't connect their hearts and minds. Absolutely not.
Freddie, thanks for coming on and talking a little bit about company culture today.
Well, I'm passionate about it. It's easy, Graham.
Same here. Now, look, where can people come and meet you and talk to you a little bit more about this?
Well, of course, we've got a couple of things coming up. Actually, I'm doing a webinar with Paul at Suzuki, where we're going to talk about how we build an award-winning high-performing team, actually, and that's on the 4th of November at 1 p.m. So that can be found on my LinkedIn. I think we'll be posting some more as well.
We'll put the link in here as well.
Yeah, we'll put the link. Great. Okay, and also they can hear our story of how we build, the fellowship program, which is our not-for-profit way of developing leaders for free, and that's actually this Wednesday at 12:30. But if anyone's interested in talking to me about culture change or wanting to to build a high-performing team, or developing leaders, to lead this, because ultimately it's the organization who needs to own this internally. Okay, then they can find me on LinkedIn or my email, which is freddie@the-redthread.co.uk.
That's been fantastic to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Graham.
Bye.